This is the moment a life hangs by a single fragile thread. On the edge of the vast Masai Mara, a lion cub had collapsed. He was not a predator, not a king. He was just a skeleton, covered in dust, his body completely surrendered to starvation. His heart was beating its final fading rhythm. He had given up all hope, but what he didn't know was that a miracle was just moments away. This is the incredible story of a journey back from the very edge of death, a race against time and the unstoppable power of compassion. Can a life that is all but lost truly be saved? Stick with us to witness the answer. Just 10 short days earlier, this same cub, a little one named Keto, was not a symbol of despair. He was a symbol of promise, of life, of the future. He was a cherished member of the mighty Ankarawa pride, a boisterous, clumsy, and deeply loved apprentice in the grand art of being a lion. On his very first hunt, the world was an overwhelming, magnificent symphony of new sights, new sounds, and new smells. While his mother and his aunts moved with a silent, deadly grace through the tall, whispering grass, their bodies low and purposeful, Keto was distracted. A tiny gazelle fawn, dancing on impossibly spindly legs, was simply too much to ignore. He gave a clumsy, playful chase, a joyful, innocent game that led him further and further and further away from the disciplined formation of the hunt. When he finally stopped, his little lungs panting, the game over, he realized his mistake. The familiar, comforting scent of his family was gone, swallowed by the vastness of the plains. In its place was the chilling, unfamiliar aroma of the approaching night. The pride's reassuring roars, once a comforting blanket of sound, were now just faint, distant echoes, fading away, like a dying dream. Panic, cold and sharp, set in. Every shadow became a monster. Every rustle of the leaves became a threat. Keto was utterly, terribly alone. The first night alone was a long, harrowing lesson in absolute fear. The maniacal, chilling choir of hyenas, their laughter echoing through the darkness, sent shivers of pure terror down his spine. It forced him to cram his small body into a thorny, unforgiving bush, where he trembled until the first rays of dawn brought a fragile peace. Hunger, a feeling he had never truly known, a cub who had never ever missed a meal, soon became his constant, cruel companion. It was a hollow, gnawing ache that twisted his insides, a constant reminder of his failure, of his loneliness. Driven by a desperation that overrode his fear, he crept towards the distant, twinkling lights of a human village. The smell of discarded food from a garbage pit drew him in, a siren's call to his empty stomach. But he was met with the harsh, inedible reality of plastic bags, and the sharp, alien smell of metal and rot. He was too weak to hunt, too small to fight, too young to survive. Puddles of muddy, stagnant rainwater became his only sustenance. With each passing day, his body began to betray him. His fur grew dull and ragged. The playful spark in his eyes dimmed and was replaced by a permanent, haunting haze of exhaustion and of fear. The vast, beautiful Masai Mara, his birthright, his home, had become an open-air prison. He was a prince without a kingdom, a son without a family, slowly, painfully, fading into nothing. It was on the 9th day, with all strength and all hope finally gone, that he surrendered, collapsing on the dusty path where David would find him, giving in to the darkness he could no longer fight. The sound of an approaching vehicle, a low, unfamiliar rumble that vibrated through the very earth beneath him, was the first thing to pierce Keto's haze of unconsciousness. It was a truck from the Mara Wildlife Conservancy, carrying 2 experienced, quiet rangers. The lead ranger was a calm, gentle man named Elias, his face carved with the lines of 1,000 suns and endless patience. His hands, strong yet gentle, had rescued countless animals from the very brink of death. Seeing Keto, Elias didn't see a predator, he saw a dying child. He approached slowly, his footsteps soft on the dry ground, speaking in a low, soothing voice. Keto, using the very last ounce of his instinct, bared his tiny teeth in a weak, pathetic snarl. It was a defense that held no threat, a gesture that only broke the rangers' hearts. There was no fight left in him, none at all. With an expert, practiced care, Elias gently wrapped the cub in a thick, warm blanket, lifting his shockingly light body. As Keto was placed inside a secure crate in the truck, his eyes met Elias's for a fleeting, powerful moment. In that gaze, the fear was still there, but it was joined by a tiny, fragile spark of something else, of hope. In that single shared moment, a silent promise was made, a promise of safety. The engine started, and the truck rolled away from the place of his despair, driving towards a fragile chance at life. At the rescue center, the official diagnosis was grim: severe dehydration and advanced starvation. He had lost nearly half his body weight. He was just skin and bone. The veterinary team worked tirelessly, a blur of focused, compassionate action. They administered fluids through a tiny IV, and fed him a special high-nutrient milk formula. Drop by patient drop. Elias rarely left his side, often sleeping on a simple cot right next to his enclosure. He would talk to the cub for hours, his voice a constant reassuring presence in the quiet room. For days, Quito remained almost motionless, a fragile life hanging in the balance. But then, a small miracle. On the 5th day, he lifted his head on his own. By the end of the week, he took his first wobbly steps. Elias brought him his very first piece of real meat. Quito sniffed it cautiously, his nose twitching, and then took a tentative weak bite. A quiet rumbling purr, a vibration of life returning, echoed from his tiny body. It was a sound, barely a whisper, but to the staff, it was a roar of defiance against death itself. Over the next month, Quito transformed. His fur regained its beautiful golden sheen, his belly filled out, his legs grew strong and steady. The ghost of starvation was banished, replaced by the solid reassuring weight of a healthy growing lion. He was ready. Elias knew, deep in his heart, that Quito didn't belong in a sanctuary. No matter how wonderful it was, he belonged with his own kind. He belonged in the wild. But the challenge, it was immense. There were several different prides roaming the vast endless plains of the Mara. Their first attempt was with a pride known to frequent the western plains. They released Quito from a safe distance, and watched, their hearts filled with hope. He approached the large lions cautiously, his head low, a sign of respect. But the lionesses, they met him with cold indifference, and low, warning growls. They sniffed him, and then turned away, dismissing him completely. This was not his family. The rejection was a physical blow. Quito's ears drooped, his tail, which had been held with a flicker of hope, now tucked tightly between his legs. He trotted back towards the truck, his hope visibly crushed. Elias's heart ached for him, but he refused, absolutely refused, to give up. They had one more lead, one last chance. The Ankarawa pride, Quito's birth pride, had been spotted more than 40 kilometers to the south. It was a long shot, a very long shot, but it was Quito's last hope for a true home. As they neared the southern plains, a change came over Quito. He became agitated in his crate, restless. He stood up, his nose twitching frantically, sniffing the wind. He began to pace, a low guttural whine coming from deep in his chest. He knew, somehow, he knew. Elias saw them in the distance, a magnificent pride resting under the shade of a large acacia tree. They opened the crate door. This time, Quito didn't hesitate for a second. He burst out, and he ran, not with caution, but with a desperate, certain purpose. He let out a soft, questioning roar, a call sent out into the world. And from the pride, one lioness immediately lifted her head. Her head snapped up, her ears swiveled, locking onto the sound. Her eyes, they widened with a look of impossible, unbelievable recognition. She stood up and answered, a deep rumbling call that was not a threat, but a welcome. It was his mother. She ran to meet him, and they met in a flurry of pure emotion, rubbing their heads together, their powerful purrs echoing across the silent savanna. It was a collision of memory, and of love. She licked his face again and again, checking every inch of her long-lost son, her child who had come back from the dead. The rest of the pride gathered around, not with aggression, but with a gentle, calm acceptance. He was home. He was finally home. Watching from the truck, silent and still, Elias and his team felt tears welling in their eyes. They had witnessed more than a rescue. They had witnessed a true miracle. They had not just saved a life, they had restored a family. They had righted a wrong in the great circle of life. As the African sun began its slow descent, casting a breathtaking golden glow over the Masai Mara, they watched Quito playfully pounce on his mother's tail. Fully accepted, fully loved, fully home. His long, terrible journey, from the very edge of death, back to the loving heart of his family, was finally complete. The truck slowly, quietly, drove away, leaving the reunited pride in peace. Quito's faint, happy roar carried on the evening wind, no longer a pathetic plea for help, but a powerful, joyous declaration, a legend that would forever be a part of the great, timeless soul of the Masai Mara.